Today we'll be going ahead with a topic that is the best way to introduce all of you to some OOPS concepts. I like to call them OOPS. OOPS stands for Object Oriented Programming Systems Concepts. So these refers to the principles of abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance, etc. And classes are one of the ways that you can showcase OOPS concepts. So classes are basically a user-defined data type that comprises of its own attributes and functions. So suppose that there is a class, as in classroom, not this class, a school classroom with like 30 students with their 30 names and their 30 roll numbers and their 30 marks. So instead of declaring like 90 different unrelated variables, you can simply create a class called maybe student with 3 attributes, name, roll number and marks, and you can just declare 30 of these class objects instead of 90 of unrelated variables. So that's what a class helps in. So let's look at it. So this is a class car which has a wheels attribute, which is an integer. Obviously you can't have 4.5 wheels. Okay, now the DEF is basically defining a function. That's what DEF is. So underscore underscore init underscore underscore is a constructor function. It's also called an initializer. So the initializer gets these arguments passed. Self is always there in all the functions. Self basically refers to the car object, whatever we are referring to. Now color and style are 2 extra arguments that are passed, and this is what the constructor function does. It prints this statement, displays the statement, and it assigns the color and style passed to this function to the color and style attributes of the car object. Now this is the next function, which is show description. It prints the statement and outputs the color and style of the car object. And this is another function which basically changes the color of the car. A color attribute will be passed as an argument, and that color is assigned to the color attribute of the car object. The final function is the destructor function, which is underscore underscore del underscore underscore. This basically deletes that particular object. So in this case a car object, and it will print the statement. So here I can give anything I want. So I can just say destructor call simply. So you can write whatever you want here. Yeah, here too. Okay, now let's declare an object of class car type. That's what we're going into now. Here C1 is an object of class car type, and when I declare this way, C1 is a car object, I have to pass those constructor required arguments. So color and style is what we're passing here. So red and sports would be passed to color and style attributes of the C1 car object. And now we're calling the show description function of the car C1. Notice how I'm accessing that particular function. It is using the dot notation. So if I say C1 dot show description, it basically means I'm calling the show description function of the object C1. So yeah, when the constructor was called, I printed car created. That's how car created came. Then show description prints this particular statement. This car is and displays the color and style of the car. So here red and sports were passed. That's what would be displayed. And here I'm calling the change color function and passing blue. So now blue is assigned to the color attribute of C1. So red is changed to blue. And now if I'm calling the show description function again, this time it will display blue sports because red has been changed to blue. And here I'm deleting the object C1. So the destructor is called and the car object is deleted. So that is what this means. Moving on to inheritance property or principle of inheritance of a class. So here we are declaring a new class, electric car, that inherits properties of the previously declared car class that we were just familiarizing ourselves with. So this is the car class. So electric car class inherits the properties, the functions and the attributes of car class. So in this case, electric car is a child class and car class is a parent class. So electric car has its own initializer. So there's an extra power also that is passed as an argument. So this is what the constructor function does, initializer constructor, same thing. So the color style power that is passed is assigned to the color style power attributes of the electric car object, and this is what is printed. And it has its own other function, battery capacity, which basically displays the power attribute of that electric car object. And now let's go into some more code. EC1 is equal to electric car black racing 200. So this is creating an object EC1 of electric car class, and it's passing the color, style and power to the constructor. So EC1 car is created. And now notice how we are accessing the show description function. So show description function isn't a function in electric car itself, but it is a function in the car class right here. So how EC1 is accessing show description is because, like I already said, electric car inherits the functions and attributes of car class. So it is able to do it. So EC1.showDescription would print that show description statement. This car is a color and style. So black racing. So electric car created was the statement in the constructor of the electric car. So that's how that came. Then this car is a black racing because show description statement. Now calling its own function, EC1.battery capacity is this function right here. So it will print battery capacity of this car is the power attribute. So 200 in this case. Next, we are also creating a car class object C2 with the color and style being gray and sedan, and we're calling the show description function. So this is normal itself because the car class is the one containing the show description function, so that's just simple. So C2 is accessing the show description function and will print this car is a gray sedan. Car created was what came with the constructor. So this car is a gray sedan is also printed through show description function. Now the next part of this code, try except, is kind of like if else, if I may. So try, basically this trial would happen, and if it happens then we'll overlook the except part and then go straight to the next statement. But in the case that the trial is an error, it will come to the except part. So here C2.battery capacity. So battery capacity is a function in the child class electric car. So what C2.battery capacity means is the C2 car object is trying to access the function of the child class. So even in the real world, parent is not the one inheriting the properties of the child. It's the other way around only. Like that, even in Python, the parent can't access the functions and attributes of the child. So C2.battery capacity is an error. Because again, battery capacity is the function in the child class electric car. So this trial is an error. So what happens is we'll come to the except part, and accessing the method failed and the error message itself is printed. So that is how this comes up. Accessing the method failed. Car object has no attribute battery capacity. Electric car is the one having battery capacity. Okay. So and the next one is del EC1, del EC2, which basically calls the destructor function for electric car EC1 and car C2. And note that the destructor function was the one electric car inherited from car class. It doesn't have its own. Yeah, and that is how these two statements get printed. Yeah, so that brings us to the end of this topic, classes and objects. Hope you guys gained something. This is Reshma signing off. See you guys in the next video.